Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's Jerry Miller. It's good to be with you on a Tuesday across the Commonwealth, across Central Virginia, Charlottesville, and Albemarle County, and frankly across the country with folks watching in Charleston, on Long Island, with folks watching in D.C., in Richmond. We got people watching right outside Chicago right now. I love what's happening here on the I Love CVille Show as we put Charlottesville and Central Virginia in a positive spotlight. One of the beautiful things about the Charlottesville community is folks get a touch and a feel of Charlottesville by perhaps going to the University of Virginia, fall in love with CVille over this 4-year period of life that's often a rite of passage for people, and they're 18, from 18 to 22, or if they're in grad school in their early 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, whatever it may be. Then they leave, they migrate somewhere else professionally, and they always miss and get nostalgic of Charlottesville, Virginia. She has a way of getting her hooks into you, and I think that's something that's absolutely beautiful about Charlottesville and about our community. Let's thank some of the folks that are, make this program possible. First, Intrastate Pest and Service Companies. This is a 4-generation strong company. We are proud to be their advertising agency of record. Their headquarters is on Harris, right here, right around the corner from Boden's. An office in the Shenandoah Valley, an office now open in Richmond. They are of a Commonwealth-wide footprint. It started in 1969, Intrastate Pest and Service Companies, with the first generation, Mr. Wells, taking one truck, going to a customer's house, servicing their home, and then going to a phone booth to call the next customer to see if they were ready for their pest control treatment. It's beautiful. I love these stories at I Love CVille. I also love stories like Dr. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner has your back. He is changing people's lives through chiropractic care, physical therapy, and sports medicine. Big-time things happening over at Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. I have the easy job. I can be myself and talk into this microphone and talk about the city that I love. It's people like Harris Tolber and Judah Wickhauer and the team upstairs, Lauren Linsky, that have the difficult job of keeping us on track. I'm really grateful for the team. Ernest Chambers, thank you for watching us. Jason Aguilera, thank you for watching us. John Updike, thank you for watching us. Like and share the stream. That would mean the world to us. And Harris Tolber, I think on that note, what we need to do is go to the studio cam. And I think we should start by talking romance. Romance here. This sharply dressed individual, I mean, you were flossing, baby. Now, you were looking fresh, Don Gathers.
Now, first of all, let's be clear.
Okay.
Dave and I are not romantically
involved. Right. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And the words the Seinfeld cast right there. But this gentleman, and who has got a big heart and a wonderful relationship with his wife, recently renewed his vows. And I'm going to get out of the way, and the show is yours now, Don Gathers.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me again.
Of course.
I am here in support of the main event on
it's
today.
The other way around,
Mr. Norris. But we do share a commonality in that we, as part of the pilgrimage to Ghana last year, to our sister city in Winneba, while there, Mr. Norris was gracious and magnanimous enough to officiate the services where my wife and I renewed our wedding vows on the shores of Ghana.
That's awesome. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. On the shores of Ghana, you're renewing your vows. How long you guys been married?
6 years now.
6 years. That's absolutely beautiful. What was that like for you, Dave Norris?
Well, the part that Don's not sharing is that this was sort of a surprise to his wife.
Surprise.
A complete surprise. So she had no idea that he had been planning to do this on the beach there in Winneba. So we had secretly gathered shortly after dawn one day down on the beach, a group from Charlottesville, and around the corner comes Don leading his lovely wife, Datisa, down to the beach. And as soon as they turn the corner, Datisa sees this crowd gathered, and she knew something was up, and Don spilled the beans there that they were going to be doing a vow renewal. And I'm quite certain Don still has the bruise on his shoulder from where she slapped him good.
It was a love tap.
It was an interesting moment. Let's put it that way.
I love that. And you know what I love about this is, like, I talk to a lot of people in the community, and your name comes up time in and time again when it comes to being efficient.
Oh, yeah,
and
I love
really
doing it.
marrying people.
Yeah,
I mean, the business sounds like it's thriving.
I've done almost 500 weddings at this point.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. But that was the first one in Africa.
The first one out of the country.
First international
first
wedding?
one out of the country,
Okay.
and it was just a real treat. I've done some memorable ones, but that's right up there. And so I thank you for the honor, Don. And it was a lovely little ceremony, and I love the fact that Datisa was pleasantly surprised, and Don just pulled it off. He just pulled off a nice little.
You have a tendency of pulling things off no matter what. I mean, I think you epitomize the do what you got to do. You epitomize success. You just get stuff done, Don Gathers.
Well, I appreciate that. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And I guess that's some of what we're here to talk about today. But I got to take a moment and say thanks to you all for this absolutely wonderful coffee. Greenberries.
Yes, sir. Look at you. I love this man.
He's good.
He's going to take my job here.
This is absolutely wonderful. If you have access to go out and purchase it, I would recommend it entirely.
Don Gathers is on fire right now. I love it, Don Gathers. I love having you here. You have a presence and an aura, and so does Dave Norris, and energy to you. I got to ask the question. We talked about it off air. We want to know how the health is. I think the follow-up natural question is, the community would like to know, may we see a Don Gathers as an independent in this council race?
Well, I appreciate that. The health is coming and is getting better, thank God, on a daily basis. But for me to launch an independent run at this time, because the filing deadline is passed.
Right.
And
for Democrats.
Right, for Democrats. And it wouldn't be fair or proper or appropriate for me to do so. I had planned to run on a ticket with Michael Payne, who I still so much, very much wholeheartedly endorse and support, and it just wouldn't be fair for me to run independently of him at this point.
You're a man of integrity.
Well, I appreciate that. There are those who may argue that point, and that's okay. The sun comes up somewhere every morning, and I'm good with that.
Rebecca Downey says, "Hey, Dave, you're looking cool."
Rebecca.
You're
Good
getting
people.
some props for
Good
Rebecca.
people.
Victoria Lee's giving you props. Melissa Easter, thank you for joining us from Latassa. We love Latassa.
We love Melissa Easter.
We love Belmont. I think you spent, I think you were tagged in a post recently. You spent some time, I believe, recently. Was it at Southern Crescent?
They had a Latassa reunion the other night from some of the old gang at Latassa. We got back together, and Melissa was there, and she created quite a community at Latassa. So it was fun to see everybody again. So,
guys, what we try to do with these gentlemen is they have the pulse on the local news cycle. They're connected individuals. We also welcome Dee Dee Smith. We want to, give our best wishes to Dee Dee Smith. She's a little under the weather this morning. Dee Dee, you're welcome back to this program anytime you want. Herb Porter says, "Sup, Dave."
Sup, Herb. We still got to get that beer, Herb.
Herb Porter is absolutely great. People, Herb, you're welcome here anytime you want. I'm going to start with an open-ended question.
Okay.
We have a little bit of clarity now with the Charlottesville City Council race. We have an independent in Bellamy Brown who tremendously impressed me on this set, spent 70 minutes with him on the I Love CVille Show. We have a number of Democrats that are running, no Republicans. Open-ended question, your thoughts on the folks that are running for council?
Well, from my perspective, we have a very impressive slate of individuals who have put themselves forward to run for those 3 seats. And God bless them, they each bring their own special qualities and characteristics and strengths that would fit those positions. I wish each and every one of them well. As I said before, I am fully and wholeheartedly endorsing Michael Payne, and I pray great things for him. But any number of those folks, I'm sure, would do well because their hearts are in the right place.
Okay. Well, we'll turn this into a sizzle reel here. This question here. What is it about Michael Payne you like and why?
His intelligence, his charisma, his willingness to do the homework that's necessary to do the job. He's an extremely intelligent and bright young man, and he knows his subject matter. He knows what he's speaking of. And I have just been overly impressed with any time that I'm in conversation with him or hear him speak and make presentations, even at city council.
Okay, sizzle reel that. Harris Tolber. Open-ended question for you, then we'll talk specifics. We have clarity, a little bit of clarity. Sure, some independents can run. Only one so far, Bellamy Brown. Only one female. Only one person of color in Bellamy Brown. Thoughts?
Well, technically, there's 3 independents.
Okay. You're
Paul,
right.
right. Paul Long
That's right.
and John Hall.
Thank you for correcting me.
But I think the big news coming out of last week was Bellamy's announcement here on the I Love CVille show that he is going to be a candidate. I think Paul and John are sort of perennial candidates. They don't necessarily expect to win. Bellamy's in it to win it, you know. So he's going to be quite a formidable candidate in this race, and it's going to give the Democrats a run for their money. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this whole thing evolves. You know, again, since I work in government now, I can't openly endorse candidates, but I agree with everything Don said about Michael in terms of what he brings to the race. Obviously, you know, Lloyd Snook has been in the community for many years, very well known, very well established, very thoughtful guy. You know, Bob Fenwick had been on council, was not renominated a couple years ago. Interesting to see him throw his hat back in the ring, and you know, so many times it boils down to name recognition, and those three probably of all the candidates, including the independents, probably have the most name recognition. So you sort of have to consider them front runners, although anything can happen.
I mean, I got to think, and you know, from time to time, I'm a betting man, and we get a lot of people giving you guys props. Let's thank the folks for watching, and guys, like and share the feed. Melissa Easter says, just giving you a ton of props right now. She's a huge fan of Dave Norris.
She is. It's mutual.
How about this? Abby Tenenbaum Guskin says the dashing duo Don Gathers and Dave Norris doing good for the CVille community. Don Gathers and Dave Norris, thank you, gentlemen. Hugs and kisses from Abby.
And Abby was with us on the trip to Ghana as well.
Okay,
that's right.
Yeah, it's a small world, Charlottesville. It's like everyone's 3 degrees apart in some capacity in Charlottesville. Michael Payne is watching right now.
Okay.
Sally Hudson watching right now. Ian McNully, Sally's campaign manager, perhaps watching upstairs in the campaign headquarters. You know, I'm going to throw this to you guys.
Well, before we do, we didn't mention the young lady who's running, Sina McGill. Yeah. And she carries a powerful message as well. And I just want to say that I wish her well. You mentioned Sally Hudson, who is taking some incredible strides in her race for delegate to replace Mr. Toscano.
Yeah. And she just announced a major endorsement yesterday, actually.
Talk to us about that.
A gentleman by the name of Deacon Don Gathers. So.
Talk to me about that, Don Gathers. And we had Toscano.
He is a kingmaker, or queenmaker in this case.
We had Toscano on this seat. He said, Jerry, if I'm coming on your show, I get to leave some swag and some merch on your shelf. And there's Toscano's water cup and his coffee.
There you go. There you go.
Big shoes to fill. And we have Kathy Galvin, who's challenging Sally Hudson. Kathy Galvin's coming on the show on Thursday. And she wants to spotlight her campaign. Sally, you're welcome to join us anytime you want. Ian, pass that message along to Sally. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on that? That's a little bit of a battle there, huh? Two very different candidates. They're
diametrically opposite, but very much carrying the same message. I have just been overly impressed with Sally from day one. Her drive and her passion are just unmatched, I believe. And I just can envision her doing great things for the district if she were to secure that seat in Richmond.
Okay, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's going to be a battle royale in many ways. They're two very formidable candidates. They bring a lot to the race. Obviously, Kathy has years of local government and school board experience. She has name recognition. Sally's newer to town. She's only been in town a few years, but she is such a dynamo. Very bright, very driven. She's done some excellent work on election reform issues, on gerrymandering reform. I'm just real solid human being, and I think she would be a real asset to this district. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
I mean, you talk about just on paper the commonalities and the differences. I mean, young versus experienced. Experienced.
I like how you played that.
Yeah, young versus experienced. Okay, single versus mother with kids, married. Okay, no political experience versus vast local experience, as you have said. Two terms on council?
2 terms.
Also school board
and
experience.
had been on the school board.
Okay, an economist versus an architect. Sally jumped into the mix much earlier and got tremendous momentum, especially with the $100,000 donation from Sonia Smith. I mean, that's big time.
That does not hurt.
I mean, that does not hurt right there. Kathy is now making the rounds, trying to rally the troops and get donations as we speak. I think that's going to be a big part of Thursday's show and what she's trying to get out the word through this platform here. Talk to me what's on your brain here about this race.
It's like you said, it'll be a battle royale. It'll be a WWE cage fight.
I love it.
It is going to really be interesting and intriguing to see how this all plays out. I just hope that people do get motivated and interested enough to get involved and become part of the process and actually get out and hit the streets and vote. That's important no matter who's running or what the election is. You got to get involved and get people motivated to want to participate in the process.
It's a non-presidential year. I mean,
correct.
how is that going to impact this race, do you think? How's it going to impact city council as well? I mean, we do not have the presidential years get people out to the polls.
Or the gubernatorial years,
Right.
for that matter.
Yeah.
So I don't expect it'll be a super high turnout race. I'd be surprised if it's more than 50% turnout. Yeah, I mean, but obviously for them, they're looking at June 11th. That's the primary
Right.
for Sally and Kathy, and for the
I mean, that
city
determines
council.
the race.
Unless an independent steps in, and that obviously has happened in the not too recent past. We had an independent break the logjam for city council, at least.
We've seen it with Mayor Walker.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that could happen. But, yeah, it's likely that whoever wins that race is going to be a strong, the odds will be good for them to prevail in November. But you never know.
Time will tell. S.J. Henry, thank you for watching us in Connecticut. Sean Napier, thank you for watching us. Aaron Slow, thank you kindly for watching us. Like and share the feed. That would mean the world to us. Let's talk local election. If I was a betting man, and I do like from time to time to wager, I'm a diehard sports fan. I know you're a diehard sports fan.
Go Hoos.
I love following you on social while you're watching the NCAA tournament because you're literally in real time like, oh my gosh, I'm sweating this game. That Hoos game was an emotional roller coaster.
That was painful.
Yeah.
It was bothersome to watch that. Yeah, but it was probably the most incredible college game I've seen in some time.
I feel the same.
I mean, just the back and forth, just constant. Nobody giving an inch. So I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And you're a basketball referee. You know the game.
Yes.
That's fair to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Not always the best of the officials and calls that are made and not made.
You're good.
And I'm probably harder on myself and my fellow officials than I should be. But that particular game, that is just one that is the shining moment in time. And to see UVA and Coach Bennett and the players break through, it's just something special for this town and this community.
Well, I love that answer, and I'm going to follow up in earnest. Thank you for jumping around here. Christopher Haggerty says some really good gentlemen there with Don Gathers and Dave Norris.
Thank you.
Kelly Heb Campbell says, Dave Norris, you're looking sharp, baby. Like and share the feed. Like and share the feed. This is what I'm going to say. This is how we got it on the sports piece. From time to time, I'm a betting guy. And as a betting guy, and I'll start with you, and I know you can't endorse anybody, but we can talk in macro terms.
Right.
I would say Snook is a 2-1 favorite. I would say Bellamy Brown is going to surprise some people. I'm going to say
He's the dark horse.
I'm going to say Bellamy Brown is 3-1. I'm going to say Michael Payne. Michael Payne is maybe like a 4-1. Those are the three front runners. Okay, maybe he says Payne ahead of Bellamy Brown. I say those are the three front runners. I think Pinkston maybe could make some moves. Cena maybe could make some moves. And then the field is like 12-1.
Well, don't forget Fenwick.
Here's my thing on Fenwick. And I love Fenwick. I spent a ton of time here with Fenwick. I think Fenwick, and Bob, I got nothing but respect for you here. And he's watching.
Right.
I got nothing but respect for Bob. I think he has an uphill battle. I think a lot of the voters may see, from an on-paper standpoint, is Snook and Fenwick being very similar. And Snook, because of his experience and his tenure in the community, and I know Bob has similar, I think is going to be the edge. I say Snook is the 2-1, favorite here. Your thoughts on this conversation here?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's going to go back to how we've essentially, in many ways, cleaned house since August 11th and 12th.
Yeah.
But on the staff level and other positions. And,
sheriff, county attorney, or city attorney,
police chief, city manager,
police chief. Yeah.
And it's very likely that as of January 1, we won't have a single city councilor left who was on council on that weekend. And you might argue for good reason. I mean, I think there's a general sense that that was a poorly managed, event and incident. And Bob was very involved in those days on council. And so I don't know. The question is, are people going to hold him accountable or not? Are people still looking to clean house? Do more house cleaning? Yeah. He had a hard time kind of navigating that whole scene, and
Everybody did.
Don was much more involved in terms of like the issue with the statues than I was. But Bob at one point was on one side, and then he sort of kind of hemmed and hawed, and then he went on the other side. And I think people on both sides of that didn't come away feeling like he had, done a great job. But again, I like Bob personally.
He's a great guy.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Your thoughts?
I'm not an odds maker, and certainly not to the level that you are.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that the numbers will shift. You may be spot on with where you were with those predictions, but again, a lot of it will depend on turnout. And what may happen between now and June 11th. Prayerfully nothing, but as Dave said, many people still hold Bob Fenwick hostage about his votes.
Yeah.
In regards to the statues, because many people still keep in mind that he abstained initially. And that left such a sour taste in people's mouths.
Right.
He did come back I think in
retrospect he would do it all over again, differently.
Yeah.
But hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, I would like to think so.
Yeah.
Even eventually he did vote to be on the right side of history with this issue. Where we move forward from that, I don't know. I was, as much as anyone, disappointed that Wes decided to pull out of the race. Yeah. Like him, love him, hate him, you can't discount the things that he's done for the community and the things that he's tried to do. The coat drives, the shoe drives, the turkey giveaways.
The coding program, the computer coding program.
Yeah. He has done an immense amount of good for this community, and you can't discount that. There are those who don't like him, and they don't like him, and that's his human nature. I happen to love my brother Wes. Whatever he decides to do in the future, I wish him all the luck and success in the world. That being said, we will miss his voice on council. Who takes that seat, as long as they're willing to keep his work moving forward, I'm okay with it.
I got a question for you. And Connie Rosenbaum, thank you for watching. Greta Von Kirchman, thank you for watching. Braun Romer, Meek Reed, Tom Dortier, Louise Jennett. A lot of people watching right now here.
Those are all good people.
All good people.
Absolutely.
Here. This is a question for both of you guys, and it's involved. It's focused on Dr. Wes Bellamy. And Dr. Wes Bellamy, I agree with everything you just said right there. Rob Schilling of the Schilling Show, you openly went to bat on Twitter about this. Mm-hmm. He had a report that Wes could not get the signatures. Is it 125 signatures? 125 signatures needed to make this push. Mm-hmm. And he released a report on his website and talked about it ad nauseum on his show, that Wes could not get the necessary signatures. You said that is not true.
Absolutely untrue. Wes has done this now 3 times.
Right.
He knows what the deadlines are. He knows what is needed and what's required. First of all, Wes was not at our church trying to secure signatures. And if he had, I promise you that he would have been more than successful.
Right.
I think that what it came down to was just the fire and the passion just didn't exist in his belly anymore. He really wants to be at home with his daughters, those that are here, and the child that's on the way.
Right.
And it just became very taxing on him, trying to balance political life and family life. And and who doesn't understand that? I mean, you've got young children that you're trying to raise, and they miss dad, and they need him at home during this time. And I absolutely get that. But it was totally untrue that Wes couldn't secure the signatures. I mean, a trip to just on a Sunday to First Baptist, to Mount Zion,
to
to
Hounslow
Ebenezer,
Park,
you know,
where he's a king.
You've got more than enough people that
Right.
are more than willing to get his name on a ballot. And in essence, that's what you're doing. You're not securing support. You're not promising anything. That's just to get your name on the ballot.
You're getting names from your friends.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
much, right?
So, you know, why that came out in the way that it did, I don't know. I can't speak to someone's motivation, but it was absolutely not correct.
Okay, good answer. Let's sizzle reel that. I think that's an important answer, an important point of clarification from a man who knows well. Dr. Wes Bellamy not running. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with what Don just said. I think the fact that he didn't, the signatures was sort of emblematic of the fact that his gut, his heart, his passion wasn't there.
A microcosm.
Yeah, and so if he had decided, 3 months ahead of time he was definitely gonna run, he could have gotten the signatures, no problem. But so I think it seemed to me like up until the very end he was still not 100% sure if he was going to run. But
until
I think
that day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so he just felt, as Don said, that his priority needs to be his family, his kids. I mean, he's teaching now in Petersburg, so he's traveling a lot, and he's got other things that he's working on, and so I wish him all the best. He has done a lot of good things for this community, so he definitely has a powerful legacy he's left behind. So.
I love it. Anja Andalik of FIG on the UVA corner, thank you for watching. Paul Stevenson in Richmond, thank you for watching. Terry, thank you for sharing the show. How does Wes not running impact the race, from your opinion?
Well, it's huge. I mean, I think that having him in the race, you would have to consider him a front runner, right?
Undoubtedly.
And between Wes and Don Gathers not running, there's a void there. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out with the remaining candidates, the Democrats and the Independents. Nobody's really going to be able to pick up his, that mantle entirely.
Right.
But nobody necessarily should. Every counselor has their own sort of style and their own agenda and their own issues and their own priorities, and that's fine. And so we're not looking to clone him, but I agree with Don. He doesn't bring an important voice to council, and I hope somebody at least channel some of that as we move forward.
Let me throw this to you. And, my odds, I talked about those odds. My odds would have changed if you were in the mix. I had Lloyd 2-1. Don Gathers was like 1.75 to 1. So you would have been the favorite, dude. Like, had you had been in the mix. No doubt about it.
And I appreciate that. I'm humble
Genuinely
enough,
mean that.
I know you're sincere, but
Yeah.
I'm also humble enough to say that I don't know what I could have done. There are things that I had on my specific platform that I was hoping to bring, but God had some other plans for me, and I'm okay with that. I did a lot of work for this city before I ever thought about running for council, and none of that will change. I'll still continue to hopefully do any and everything that I can, as long as I have breath, to try to bring this city to a place that we can all love and respect. I was thinking earlier today, I was envisioning a council of Dave Norris and Nakiah and Holly Edwards and Wes and Nancy O'Brien. Imagine those five types of personalities seated on the dais and just everyone on a common mission to do what's best for the city. And those are the type of people that we need to seek out and push them and push their agendas forward.
Let me throw this to you here. The folks that are running for council, what do you see or what do you think? What are some of the top topics, points of interest, tenets to the platform? And I'm going to throw this to both you guys. And why don't I throw this to Dave and then you jump in the mix here? What are the separation points, the value propositions? What's going to determine winners here?
So my philosophy on this is different from sort of conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom in Charlottesville, at least, when it came to local elections, was you run on your bio, you run on your resume, right? And so when I ran back in 2006, people told me, don't talk about ideas, don't talk about specifics, proposals, platform, et cetera. Just run on your resume. And I wouldn't do it. Like my whole campaign was about specific proposals I had for Charlottesville. And this year, really, most of the candidates that I've seen, at least so far, are kind of running on their resumes. The one exception being Michael Payne. You know, and Michael Payne has come out of the gate talking about housing, talking about climate, talking about criminal justice. I mean, because he's been immersed in it. Like, he's been doing this work.
Habitat.
With Habitat, he's been going to city council meetings for years now. He might be the only person that's gone to city council as much as Don Gathers. I mean, in terms of being active and visible and present
and consistent,
and engaging. Like, he's engaging in this stuff. And so we haven't seen some of the other candidates do that. And so, so I think that gives them a leg up. And but again, you never know how it's going to play out. But I would say the others seem to be mostly running on their resumes, and that we'll see how it goes.
Your thoughts?
As Dave said, Michael has been much more engaged from a hands-on standpoint, I think, than many of the other candidates. I tell people in the job field, your resume tells people who you were. The interview, if you will, tells people who you are. So the platforms, the debates will be very, very interesting, and I think very, very important and very telling to the community, so that people can actually get to know hands-on who these people are and what their hopes and wishes are for the city.
Had you have done this, hypothetical terms, and we have a lot of positive, we're live on 7 channels across the I Love CVille network, and Ellie Biddle-Tucker has great praise for you guys. She says, I love the show, Jerry. Thank you, Ellie. She says, high respect, big time respect for Don Gathers and Dave Norris. She says, affordable housing needs to be more of an important element in this campaign. Please ask them what candidates might have this as their focus. Dave has already acknowledged that with Michael Payne. I mean, it's literally I feel like the foundation of his campaign. I feel like that's safe to say.
Yeah.
And he understands the concept inside and out. And what I think Michael Payne does really well is he humanizes himself from an affordable housing standpoint, where he straight up says, look, I am making very little money. X amount of percentage, and I don't want to say the exact number, but X amount of percentage of my income, a very high percentage of my income is going to my rent. I am struggling to get by. And this is one of the impetuses or influences of why I'm running for council. And I respect that, because it's a sense of vulnerability that a lot of people aren't often willing to show, especially in the age of digital media.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this in regards to Payne, which we've touched on. The other candidates, I totally agree with what he said, and I'm not marginalizing anyone, but I'm not seeing like someone like with Mike Signer said, I'm going to do this. Landmark Hotel. Okay, specific, this is the solution of what I'm going to do. I'm not seeing that from the other folks here. And
that in and of itself isn't completely problematic. Look, Michael walks the talk. He knows what he's doing. He's involved. He works for Habitat, so he does this on a daily basis. He eats, lives, and sleeps it. And any candidate who is not pushing affordable housing and even affordable home ownership to the forefront, I would consider suspect. That's got to be the number one priority and number one issue here in this community is finding the number of affordable housing units that we're lacking right now. Even the issue of UVA coming out recently and laying claim to creating a living wage of $15 an hour, people need to very much understand that $15 an hour still puts you under $32,000 a year. And I don't know how someone can survive on that here in this community at less than $32,000 a year. So it's not a living wage. It may be a raising of the minimum wage, but let's call it exactly what it is.
It's UVA managing perception is what it is.
Let's just call it what it is. And I really need to hear from the other candidates, and I've heard some from Cena, where she stands on this. Bellamy just getting in the mix, so to speak, is, as Dave said, the wild card. And I truly wish him well. I just need to know exactly where he stands on some of these issues. And not only affordable home ownership and affordable housing, but the educational system, the prison reform, and what we can do with the jail board. There are just a plethora of issues that we've got to stop talking about and actually start doing something with. The Black Student Union over at the high school just had an incredible event last week, where they were trying to bring rise and concern to some of the issues that they say that they're facing over at not only at Charlottesville High School but in the city school system itself, and that newspaper report that Sister Dee Dee had very much something to do with. It pulled the Band-Aid off. And
the New York Times story.
Yeah, revealed a very ugly scab that has existed here apparently for some time in this community. And we've got to know what the candidates intend to do about some of those issues.
That's a good answer. Sizzle reel that answer. Jump in
So
here.
I'm going to jump in here because just in the last few days, this is sort of, a fresh pressing issue right now. We learned that there's an apartment building in Belmont, 46 units, and mostly occupied by low-income seniors, people with disabilities. It's a privately owned building. Ownership recently changed. The new owner has made it clear that he intends to jack up the rents, right? He's going to renovate all the apartments. I don't want to say that.
Okay.
But
I know.
And and so you've got 46 households who are now going to be out of housing. They're paying on average about $500 a month in rent. That's below market. Now they're all going to be scrambling to try to find replacement housing. That's a crisis. This is real life stuff. And one example is a woman I learned about just yesterday, 84 years old, I believe. She's blind. She goes to dialysis 2 days a week. She's been living in this apartment 47 years, right? She pays $500 a month, 84 years old, getting kicked out of her apartment, right? This is not okay. Like we need to, and there's nowhere else to go. So she's working with a local social service agency who found her an apartment. The cheapest rent they could find was $900 a month. Elderly blind woman is being put out. They don't know how she's going to be able to afford this new place, right? This is real life stuff, right? And when news of this breaks, the thing that gets me is those candidates who talk the talk, but then as Don said, who are the ones that are actually walking the walk? The two candidates, and again, I'm not endorsing anybody, but the two candidates that I know of at least who reached out and said, I want to learn more and see what I can do to help, Michael Payne, Bellamy Brown, right? And so, and maybe the others have, and I'm just not aware of it, hasn't come across my radar screen, but we've got real challenges here. We've got real people who are struggling and hurting, and we need our political leadership to pay attention.
Sizzle reel that, Harris Tolbert. Look at that. The man's already on point. Harris Tolbert, you're fantastic, baby. Elliot Harding says, two good men on set right there, Don Gathers and Dave Norris. Christopher Haggerty says, affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. Hosea Mitchell, thank you kindly for watching and joining us on the show. Like and share the feed. That would mean the world to us. Rob Davis at Embassy 29, thank you for watching. A lot of folks in City Hall watching right now. Show is yours.
Not only affordable housing, but public housing as well. We've got to do a better job taking care of our public housing residents. And we've got to do a better job of holding developers' feet to the fire when it comes to the gentrification process. Rather it's the overt gentrification or the backdoor gentrification. We've got to do a better job of making some demands of these people, as much as we legally can, that they set aside X number of units that people will be able to live in and afford in perpetuity. I don't think that we ought to put any time constraints on those, because people there'll always be a need. And we've got to always figure out new and creative ways to address those needs.
One thing, and I'm going to throw this to both you gentlemen, one thing that has been gaining momentum is raising the threshold for the tax relief from a salary standpoint. And you guys can educate us a little bit more. I think it's in the $65,000 range, something along that threshold, where if you potentially make under that price point, then you have some subsidization opportunities from a tax standpoint with your home. That's intriguing to me, because oftentimes what is happening is like the lower middle class is being forgotten. Absolutely. And the lower middle class is being forgotten, despite the fact that a lot of times they're just scraping by. Like it's a paycheck to paycheck. It may not be as like the most impoverished socioeconomic category, but still scraping by in a high cost of living community. Your thoughts on this, Dave?
Absolutely, and I give all credit in the world to our mayor, Nikia Walker, for championing that specific initiative about expanding the tax relief program. She has taken that on, and she's made some real headway. And so, we have to, as Don said, gentrification has been killing us. The home ownership rate among African Americans has been doing this in the last 10 years. In Charlottesville, the home ownership rate among Caucasian or white Americans has been doing this in Charlottesville. And so, and it's not just a race thing, as you said, it's affecting the working class of all races, and people are being priced out. Yeah. And one of the ways that we can help is, when you've got home values going through the roof in your neighborhood, but you're on a fixed income, instead of you being priced out because you can't afford the taxes that are escalating dramatically, this program gives you a little bit of tax relief. And in some cases, for very low income individuals, full tax relief. And again, that's thanks to Mayor Walker. She has made that happen, and it's good to see.
Your thoughts, Don Gathers. Jump in here.
We've also got to figure out how to bring UVA to the table and hold their feet to the fire, because they've got to be a major player in this. Both on the housing side and as well as the economic side. They're the largest employer in the area, and they bear a huge brunt of the responsibility in this, and we just can't continue to have the discussions that don't include them.
I love it. I love it. Regina, I'm going to mess your last name up, Regina Alpaw. And if I messed her last name up, I apologize. She says, this is an absolutely fantastic conversation that needs to be had. The conversation about Mayor Walker is a perfect springboard to recent Facebook comments, recent Facebook posts that she left, and I would encourage you to check it out. I'm going to, it's a longer post. I'm going to paraphrase it, and it's essentially a challenge or a critique of the Democratic Party in Charlottesville, Virginia. And number 2 of it says, some of y'all rocking the big D, meaning the Democratic Party, like the white skin you're in. FYI, the Democratic Party hasn't really served non-white people well in Charlottesville. Open-ended question. You can go anywhere you want. Your thoughts on this topic? Both of you guys.
She ran as an independent for a reason. It's not
because courageous.
Yeah, and so she, unlike I think it's fair to characterize Bellamy Brown's reason for running as an independent is he's a little bit more conservative than many Democrats. He's a little bit more liberal than many Republicans. Yeah. He's sort of right center of the road.
It kind of in some ways reminds me of a libertarian.
In some ways.
Yeah, but in many ways, yeah.
But Mayor Walker's reason for running as an independent were much different.
Sure.
I mean, she's running as an independent because she feels like the Democratic Party, which is the dominant political party in Charlottesville, hasn't served her community well, or our community well. And so I wasn't terribly surprised to hear her make that comment. She, and you can go back to, you look at when we got the Charlottesville Housing Fund set up. Now the Housing Fund is very robust, and the council under Mayor Signer's leadership and Mayor Walker's leadership has actually doubled the size of the fund. It's doing good things now. But when we first proposed creating a permanent housing fund in the city, it wasn't the Charlottesville Republican Party that came out to oppose it. It wasn't the general public. The public supported it. It was actually the Democratic Party leadership and former mayors and councilors who came out and killed it, And so, the Democratic Party hasn't always been on the side of justice, and so I can understand her frustrations.
Your thoughts, Don Gathers?
First of all, you have to truly admire her because she is willing to take a stance and to put her thoughts and her feelings out there. The Democratic Party has for a while not been producing and giving things to the people who elect them and typically put them in office. And
what do you mean by that?
Well, by and large, the minority community has always been supportive of the Democratic Party. And for so long now, for so many years, they basically abandoned minorities, not just locally, but across the country. And you can just see the trickle-down effect of the Democratic Party nationally and statewide here recently has just been in a complete shambles. So for her to have the courage to step up and make that statement, I'm not surprised by it because that's just who she is, and I admire her for it. But I don't have a problem at all with what she said. She believes in holding people accountable, and that accountability and transparency is what got her elected into office. So she's just asking people, look, if you're truly the party of the people, then don't just continue to talk about it. Stand up and actually do something. It's just enlightening to me that people are more offended by folks calling you a racist than you are about actual racist acts. Yeah.
Mayor Walker just walked by. Mayor Walker, come back. You're welcome.
Grabbed her and brought her
Yeah.
in.
And hey, someone text her. She's welcome to come back on the show. Literally just walked by the studio here. Is it fair to say you're the mayor of Charlottesville? Were one time the mayor of Charlottesville. Ran as a Democrat.
Maybe,
I did.
again.
Yeah. Know the Democratic Party inside and out.
I was never much of a party insider, to be honest.
But
yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
the players?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say, or is it a tough question for you, that the party is not, this is a really tough question.
Right.
The party is not truly genuine with having the back of people of color and African Americans in Charlottesville, Virginia?
Well, I mean, I think what she's basing that critique on, and what Don was referencing, is the fact that the conditions in which we find ourselves, where so many people in her community, so many family members end up on this kind of school to prison pipeline, and we have serious issues with police-community relations. We have serious issues with housing. We have serious issues with jobs, living wage jobs. We have all these challenges happened largely on the watch of Democrats.
Especially in Charlottesville.
In Charlottesville. And so I think that's a lot of why that critique is there. And that doesn't necessarily mean she's supporting Republicans,
right.
But I think she wants politicians, she wants political leadership to be accountable to the people and to actually, as Don said, not just talk the talk, but actually make systemic change happen, right? And it frustrates her. But I will say one thing that I found really striking was on election night, 2017, November 2017, I was at her election night party at the Jefferson School. It was just a vivid contrast from what I saw and experienced there from the video I saw of the Democratic election night party over at Escafé.
Yeah.
Nakaya's party, much bigger, right? Much more diverse, much younger, much more energized, much more passionate, right? And then there's a video, I wasn't there, but I saw a lot of video footage of that party where it's much older, whiter crowd, kind of low energy, and I think that's, if I'm a Charlottesville Democratic, if I'm in the Charlottesville Democratic leadership, seeing that contrast, I'm gonna be a little worried.
Let's turn, and we're going to get Don's perspective here. Harris, let's turn the entire segment into a sizzle reel, starting with my reference to the Facebook post, because people are loving this right here. Ernest Chambers has given you some big-time props. He says, Don Gathers, you are absolutely right about UVA needing to be at the table. Thank you, Don Gathers, for saying that. Haggerty is saying this conversation is phenomenal. Blessings to everybody on set. Like and share the feed, guys. Like and share the feed. Bellamy Brown watching right now. Michael Payne watching right now. We got 3 members of upper level members of Charlottesville City Hall watching right now. 5 council candidates watching right now. I'm going to throw this to you. What then needs to be done if the Democratic Party is not having the back of the community in totality? Is it the need for a third party? I mean, is it the need for more people to run as independents? Because Mayor Walker wins as an independent, and I'm saying Bellamy is one of 3 front runners to potentially win a seat on council. That could be potentially back-to-back elections, where an independent could win a seat on council. That could start a wave of momentum.
Well, there's a reason why Bernie Mania took off like it did. People really, by and large, I think, are sick of the 2-party system. But the reality is, especially on that level, you have to have the party's backing in order to be successful. Locally, not as much, and Mayor Walker proved that. And if another independent were to run and win, wouldn't it all be surprising to me? The Democratic Party needs to look inwardly
to evolve.
Yeah, and focus on, it's not the party that it once was. It's not the party of Kennedy and Johnson anymore. You've got to be willing to be proactive. You got to be willing to, as you say, evolve and get some young blood and some young people involved. Now, the local Democrats do an extremely good job. That's not a knock on them whatsoever. We just need some fresh set of eyes, some fresh looking, some fresh thinking, and like you said, the possibility existed. We, for the last 2 election cycles, could end up with an independent actually moving in and taking a seat. I don't think that would be surprising to anyone. I don't think it would be an horrific thing either.
Agreed.
The Democrats just have to be, and not only the Democrats, but some other local organizations, NAACP, the churches, we all have to be out at the forefront in making the change happen that we actually say we want to see.
Your thoughts on this, Dave Norris?
Yeah, I think the other big issue, and this plays out locally and nationally, is the Democrats have lost touch with the working class of this country and of this community, and so which is why we have who we have in the White House right now. And so, Hillary Clinton lost many of those Midwest states that we were counting on, that we really needed, and it's because I think her party and she personally.
Well, not only the Midwest states, but Ohio and Pennsylvania.
That's what I'm
Florida.
including. That's what I'm including. Yeah,
it just made no sense.
Right, and so the party of Kennedy and Johnson and others. I just feel like they've strayed from their roots, if you will.
The conservative Democrat or the progressive Republican is a thing of the past. Like, where are they? Why?
Well, to me, it's not even conservative, and I mean, I always loved how Tom Perriello used to phrase it, which was, it's not right or left, it's who's going forward or who's going back, and so, and Tom was somebody who did connect with, I think, with, kind of everybody. Yeah. And so we need more candidates like that, and this is why I agree that Don would have been a very...
You would have crushed it.
Yeah.
You would have crushed it.
I appreciate that.
I mean that.
And again, who knows what the good Lord has for me in the future, but right now this just wasn't in the cards, and I'm okay with that. I would like to think that I could have brought about some effective change, and I like to think that possibly I still can, whether I'm actually seated on council or not.
Jay Bartels says, start locally and move nationally to end two-party division. We won't come together without the third party. I totally agree with that. We need a third party stepping up here. Thoughts, Dave Norris, on 2 election cycles and an independent potentially winning a seat on council?
Yeah, that's pretty...
that was amazing.
It's big. It's a big change from where we've been. And as you know, it had been 70 years since Charlottesville ever had an independent on city council. And so
70 years?
70 years. And the last...
Prior to Mayor Walker.
Right. And the last one back in the 40s was kind of a fluke, as I understand it. It was a Republican who ran as an independent. But anyhow, so that's pretty earth-shattering, and the fact that it could happen twice, I think, is really indicative of where the political climate right now, and people are hungry for some alternative. Whether it's a third party, I don't know if it needs to be a third party. I just think it needs to be political leaders and candidates who aren't necessarily bogged down in a partisan sort of perspective, but can really look out for what's best for the average person and deliver for the average person.
Were you surprised that Bellamy Brown is running as an independent?
I'm not, no. People by and large, like I say, whether it's Republican or Democrat or red or blue, they want to get from under the minutia that their parties carry with them. And they don't want to be tied down or handcuffed. They're independent thinkers, they're free thinkers, and they want to be able to move as much as anything their own agenda as opposed to a specific party's agenda.
Do you see the open-ended question here? You have real estate taxes, lodging taxes, and meals taxes really in the news cycle constantly. And why they're in the news cycle is because we have a potential budget deficit, and affordable housing is huge, and we need to figure out a way to solve the affordable housing crisis. And for us to be able to do that, we need money. Right. And raising those 3 categories of taxes will help potentially solve this dilemma. And it's an affordable housing crisis, which Mayor Walker on this set called an undoubtedly affordable housing crisis. Here's where I'm going with this. Yesterday in the council meeting, meals tax is going to pass. Lodging tax is going to pass. Real estate taxes seems to still very much be up in the air. Yeah. Your thoughts on this? And then I'll throw it to you.
And it seemed as though we were moving towards the 1-1-1. And that's where truly where I thought...
Kathy started that, right?
Yeah, and I really thought that was where we were headed, and I thought that all the council had brought into that pretty much, and now it seems as though some of them have backed off and backed away from it. You have those who, as you saw last night, stepped up and said that they would certainly be more than willing to pay additional taxes if it means that the community can afford to live here. I don't think that by and large the everyday man, everyday woman wants to see any of their neighbors displaced. But as we looked at with those 46 units, that's where we're headed, unless we take some hard stances and actually do some of the critical work that's necessary.
Good answer right there. Connie Rosenbaum, thank you for watching. Jason Peterson, Greta Von Kirchman, thank you kindly for watching. Steve Stevenson, thank you kindly for watching. Your thoughts on that topic?
Well, I tend to agree. Mayor Walker had a Facebook Live, I think, a week or two ago, where she expressed some frustration over the fact that, we have this argument about taxation in order to fund, new things for affordable housing in this case. But why do we have to, why don't we start with affordable housing? Just assume that that's going to be a priority. And then we can have the argument about taxation for some other things in the budget that aren't as high profile, high priority, So kind of, again, it's all about changing our basic way of thinking about these things. And so I personally did not like the fact and do not like the fact that funding for housing is being held hostage to tax increases. That to me is such a high priority right now. That should be sort of item number one, and then we can think about schools, other things. The schools is a really interesting one because there's a huge price tag coming for school reconfiguration in Charlottesville, tens of millions of dollars. Council this year basically said we're going to punt for another year. We're going to put some money into some design work, but the big enchilada we're going to put off. But that's going to be a huge conversation next year. This time next year, that's going to be dominant.
One of the buddies I follow closely, and JoJo Robertson, I'm going to get to this question very shortly. One of my buddies I follow closely on Twitter is Matthew Gilligan, and I think he does some really good things on Twitter. And he has said his wife is a teacher in Charlottesville City Schools. He's a tremendous advocate for affordable housing, speaks often at council meetings, went to the budget session on Saturday, a few Saturdays ago at the Jefferson School. Very active and very civically engaged. And he made this point. He goes, we're going to invest all this money in a West Main Streetscape project. And this West Main Streetscape project is millions of dollars of taxpayer money. And we're doing this potentially in place of affordable housing allocation or school improvement allocation. Now, the second layer to that onion, and I'll throw it to you and then throw it to you, the second layer to that onion is there's some matching state funds. And that's why we're going down that road, is because we want that state to narrow. Open-ended question. Your thoughts on that topic?
Well, that was actually the specific example that Mayor Walker cited when she's talked about we've got to shift our priorities now. Why not? Why is that a given? Why is that project a given? Particularly when you consider the fact that the primary sort of financial beneficiaries of that project are the property owners along West Main Street, who are not hurting. All right? These, generally speaking, are fairly wealthy individuals.
Yeah, Alan Cagina owns a lot of that quarter.
Right, yeah. And I'm in favor of infrastructure improvements generally, but I think when it comes down to choosing, you have to make some hard choices when you're in office. And there are some state matching funds, but there are millions of dollars of local funds going into that as well that we could be using for other things. So this is the give and take that you engage in when you're on council. And I actually think this council has done a pretty good job.
You do?
In terms of hashing out all these different priorities. I think they've arrived at a place that gets a lot of good things moving forward. And but next year is going to be tough.
We'll get Don's perspective here on this topic. JoJo Robertson says, what can be done to get a Don Gathers and Dave Norris ticket? Because you guys are freaking crushing it right now. JoJo Robertson, thank you for joining us on the program. Your thoughts on this topic?
As Dave said, we've got to prioritize. And beautification projects and tree planting and bike lanes, that shouldn't be nearly as high on the list as finding housing for people and making sure that people can maintain and remain city residents. We just got to do better as far as looking at what's progressive and what's necessary. I'm all for beautification projects when we can afford to do them and when they fall in line under other things. if we had a surplus of monies that we could earmark that specifically to, so be it. But that's, again, after we take care of our residents. And I'd much rather see people have somewhere to stay than to see beautiful trees planted alongside a main street, and especially it's going to directly negatively impact those businesses because much of this project means that parking spaces will be taken away. So, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, and somebody eventually has to make those payments.
Good answer right there. That's the close of that topic. Start it with my question, Harris Tolber, about the West Main Streetscape, and finish it right there with that answer. That's a sizzle reel. We are 68 minutes in, and you guys are utterly crushing it right now. I want to kind of close with this topic. How will the 5 council members, and we'll start with you, the 5 council members, that is Mike Signer, Dr. Wes Bellamy, Kathy Galvin, Mayor Walker, and Heather Hill, this fivesome, how will they be remembered and characterized? Because the band's about to break up, okay? There's 3 members of the band that are hasta luego in, okay? How will these 5 members be remembered or characterized?
Sadly, there's no way to divorce themselves from it, but 3 of them will be directly remembered for August 11th and 12th. It's sad, but and it wasn't directly their doing. No one could have predicted that what happened that fateful weekend was going to happen. But that, unfortunately, will be tied to their legacy. The fact that they were here, that they were in charge during that time. I think right now the jury's still out on Vice Mayor Hill and Mayor Walker as to what footprint they may leave behind. Right now, I think that they are doing some incredible and miraculous things for the community and trying to move the city forward and that progressive needle, if you will. But they're also very much centered and focused on the needle of morality and what needs to be done to care for the very least of these in our community.
Good answer. Your thoughts, Dave Norris?
Yeah, I think they're doing some real commendable work, and I'm a little biased because I'm involved in this effort, but they're doing some very commendable work in terms of increasing investments in housing. I mean, this year's budget has about $10 million in housing. That's unprecedented. So it's not enough. There's always more need. So I commend them for that. I totally agree with Don in terms of the legacy of August 11th and 12th. They've been trying to pick up the pieces, but so I think there is a house cleaning happening, right? And some of it's by self-selection, some of it's just by the public voting people out, so one of the real legacy sort of pieces we haven't talked about is the fact that they're very soon going to hire a new city manager for Charlottesville. And given our form of government, which I think should be changed, but I realize I'm probably in the minority there.
What, do you think it should be strong mayor?
Yeah. I like what Richmond did. I think the Richmond model is the best model. You have a directly elected, so the chief executive of the city is directly accountable to the citizens, but they still you still have a city manager. They call it a city administrator, I think.
Like a director of operations, if you
right, well versed in governance and governmental operations, but. But given our form of government, which is a weak mayor, strong city manager form of government, this choice, which all 5 of them will be involved in, is going to really shape our city in pretty profound ways for years to come. So I'll be very interested to see who they choose and sort of how that person steps in and the kinds of changes they push. And
you got a favorite?
I don't, and I would defer to Don. I actually wasn't able to meet. They had a meet and greet for the 3 finalists.
Essentially an interview.
Right. I unfortunately was not able to go, so I didn't meet any of them. I don't know, Don, were you there for the...
Yeah. I went over to the session at the Jefferson School.
Right.
And each one brings its own unique strengths to the position. I guess I'm more concerned right now that we haven't actually named someone.
Right.
It's been some 3 weeks, I believe, at this point, and I really thought that we would have had someone named and in place by now. So I'm not sure exactly what the bureaucratic delay is with that, but I'm hoping that it's someone that I'm hoping that someone will be put in place soon.
Why do you think this is taking so long?
I
mean, the longer this
earthly
happens,
idea.
the more the more concern and the more worry and the more lack of potential trust and distrust is mounting with citizens in Charlottesville. I'm just like, this is the #1 position in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Highest paid position in Charlottesville from a city government standpoint. And this has taken, how long has this taken? I mean, how long has Mike been in interim?
It's been a while. Last summer, was it?
And doesn't his tenure
August,
end in
I
July
believe.
1? I think his tenure ends right around July.
Well, they'll extend it if necessary, but
I mean, that would be, and I got no beef with Mike. I mean, but why would we go and like extend again when we've spent? I mean, there was a story in the Progress about, I think the number was 4,000 spent so far just on the interviewing process here. I mean, why is this taking so long?
I wish I knew. I truly wish I knew. It makes you wonder, has something happened through the process that has come to light, especially on maybe the candidate that they had chosen. I don't want to speculate on that, but it's bothersome that they haven't named anyone at this point.
Tim?
Although I will say though, I think I'd rather they do it well.
Of course,
yeah.
I mean, if it takes another couple months, if that's what it takes to get the right person in the job, I think that's worth it. But I agree, it's we need.
I mean, you got a position that is total compensation. I think Maurice was flirting with 225,000.
190.
Well, then he had the benefits.
Right.
And
The base salary is like 190.
Yeah, then he had the benefits,
Yeah.
the medical,
Yeah.
UVA tuition, and the home loan forgiveness.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like when you're offering that kind of money, it's not like you can't find candidates.
Right,
I mean, someone who's making that kind of bank in Charlottesville legitimately can live like a king.
And at least one of those candidates right now is actually making more than that.
Right.
I believe the gentleman in Austin is making more than that, so we have to take that into consideration as well. And maybe that's what's going on. It's negotiation of the package. I honestly don't know, but it's fortunately Mr. Murphy is doing a good job from what I can see. So the rush or the push isn't as impactful as it could be if that position was void altogether. But it does bring some questions to mind what the delay is.
Steve Christie in Richmond says, this has been a phenomenal show. I've watched it from start to finish. Great insight, Don Gathers and Dave Norris. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Why don't we close the program like this? I want to challenge this young man and get him a chance to offer his perspective, and then we will close with you guys kind of like having a final word where you can go in any direction you want.
Jerry Springer show.
No, it's kind of like Pardon the Interruption, with Tony and Mike Wilbon.
PTI.
I love PTI. Okay. That's one of my favorite shows, baby. Harris Tolber, Western Albemarle's finest, JMU's finest, newest addition to the club here, newest addition to the squad. Talk to us, Harris Tolber.
Yeah, it's been a fun interview, Jerry, and I continue to learn a lot about our political climate in this town from these gentlemen, and we've had a lot of the candidates in this race come on the show, and one thing I can honestly say is that I've looked them all in the eye, I've shaken their hands, I've heard what they had to say about their platforms, and regardless of where they're coming from, it's refreshing. Like, there's not one candidate that I can say isn't genuinely authentic in trying to bring their beliefs and from a place of the heart to do better to their for our community here. I really liked at the beginning of the interview that Don gave threw out a bunch of names and gave a lot of credit to those who are involved in this race, and I also like that Perriello quote that Dave provided. Yeah. I thought that was profound. It was it's not right or left, it's you're moving either forward or backward. Right. I like that. I thought that was a very profound quote. And yeah, it's been a fun interview. I continue to learn a lot. Thanks, Jerry.
Harris Tolber, I like it, homie. I like it. Tremendous respect for you. I mean that. Don Gathers, show is yours, sir. Camera over here is your one-shot camera. Anything you want. Looks like our photographer is about to make you look really good. Get Don and Dave here, baby. Looking at this camera. You're gonna do your best modeling. I mean, you're looking sharp, dude. You're looking sharp. Anywhere you want to go, show's yours.
First of all, thank you once again for.
It's been fun.
I enjoy coming here and sitting across from this guy makes it all much easier.
Yeah, likewise.
Once again, thank you, Greenberry Coffee.
He's gonna steal my job.
And
you would crush it in this season.
Now, look, we all have our own callings. I more have a face for radio.
Oh, stop.
So, To the candidates, if I leave you all with anything, it is, again, much love, much success, much respect. And I will leave you with one of my favorite passages from the Bible, Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Again, that's Joshua 1:9. Again, much love and respect to the seated counselors, those who are on the way out, those who are on the way in, and I appreciate very much the courage of those who have stepped up, not only to council, but also to Sally Hudson and to Kathy Galvin for putting themselves out there to run for delegate in the House of Representatives.
Love that. Love that. Sizzle reel that,
sorry.
Harris Tolbert. I think, and one thing to piggyback on what he said, especially in the age of social media, we have a tendency in some ways to like treat people that are running for election, even especially at the local level, as almost like, they're like racehorses in the Kentucky Derby, where we forget oftentimes that these are like literally human beings that are trying to do what's best for Charlottesville and are doing a job where like 50% of the community is probably going to dislike what they're doing, and they're getting paid peanuts. And I guess where I'm trying to say, with this is, regardless of politics, they're people. And let's remember that they're people.
And I like that analogy, because just like with racehorses, if something happens, if they should break a leg, so to speak, we're ready to put them out to pasture and to shoot them.
Yeah.
And that's just not how it should be.
Right. And like regardless of politics,
people stumble. And
4 years
it
of their
happens.
lives they're giving to this, and it's like, I just have respect for anyone who's willing to go and show this sense of like courage and vulnerability, and willing to manage like the sense of like hate that comes with elected office. It takes guts.
Yeah, Dave can speak to it much more than much better than I can. It's an immense sacrifice.
You were stellar at it, dude.
Well, no, I don't know about that, but I look at a guy like Wes Bellamy, who has just been through hell and back, the death threats, the racist taunting, the you name it, and politics, it can be a full contact sport and can get ugly, and it doesn't have to. It really should, and particularly on the local level, where we're neighbors, we're each other. Like, we all shop in the same grocery store.
Right.
Our kids play on the soccer and when you're on the local level, these are people who just want to make the community a better place for the most part. And so I give full props. I agree with Don. Like, full props to people who put themselves out there, take this on, and they are human beings. I think about this little incident. 2008, after President Obama, or Barack Obama and Joe Biden had received their party's nomination for president and vice president, then the general election campaign started in earnest. And at one point, Mrs. Obama, Michelle Obama, and Jill Biden made a joint appearance in Charlottesville at UVA. And at the time, I was the mayor, and Holly Edwards was the vice mayor. So, so we get invited to go backstage and greet them and welcome them to Charlottesville. And, I do that corny thing that mayors always do, like, hey, welcome to Charlottesville. It's great to see you. We're thrilled to have you here. All that sort of stuff. I meant it, but whatever. So then they turn to Holly, and Holly says, can we please join hands? And Michelle Obama's like, what? And she says, can we join hands? I'd like to say a prayer of protection. And she just gave this beautiful Holly-esque prayer of protection, as just like, I want to put this loving embrace around you and your families and your husbands for this work that you're doing and putting yourselves out there. And it was just this beautiful moment. And I think there's, until now, maybe 5 people in the world who even knew about that story. But that was first of all, that's just how Holly was, But again, it just acknowledged that these are human beings, And so you've got to give full props to the people who put themselves out there for public service.
Especially at the local level.
Especially at the local level. And, and I go back to the thing I said the very first time I came on the show, Jerry, which is I give you props because so many people don't pay attention to local elections.
Right.
And yet the decisions that are made in the city council chambers have much more, or county board chambers, have much more impact on people's day-to-day lives than the decisions that are made in Washington, D.C. or even Richmond. And so please pay more attention to who's running, ask them questions, get your ideas before them. Get involved. Vote. Whether if you're a Democrat, vote June 11th.
Just get involved.
Get involved,
Yeah.
and and pay attention, because this is important stuff.
Amen. Amen. Let's sizzle reel that. Abby, thank you. She says, thank you for this wonderful show and having these dynamic gentlemen share their views. Don and Dave, this was truly, truly engaging. Thank you, Abby, for sharing that. This has been awesome. I thoroughly enjoy conversating with you. I just like the whole vibe and like flowing energy and discussion. You guys made us better. You guys rock. I admire you. I just want to, and you guys do this and embody this, leave Charlottesville better. And like make Charlottesville better. And like we're in such Pearl, and like it's such a tumultuous time for our community. And I feel like with pillars and leaders and influencers like you, we're gonna turn the corner, and it's gonna be like, the future is bright.
Yeah, I'm prayerful that you're correct, but it takes work.
But with folks like you and folks like you, the work's gonna happen.
Well, you two sitting there makes it easier for me to sit in this seat.
Don.
Yeah, that's just the reality.
You brought some fire today. Okay, I always call him LeBron James over here. This is what it is here. This is like Kareem and Magic Johnson, and I'm just Byron Scott. Okay.
Well, you need somebody to pass the ball. So that's important.
We close the show the same way every time, guys. The same way. If you give more than you take, you will make our community better, and you will probably win in the end. So please give more than you take, especially in our community. That would mean the world to everybody. And also the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated yourself. It is amazing the impact you can have even at the micro level if you embody the golden rule. You smile to someone, you say, how are you doing? When you're walking down the street, open the door for them. Yeah. Let somebody go in front of you at the red light. Treat people like you want to be treated yourself. And if you do that, our community, our commonwealth, our country will be in a much better state, and we need it in 2019. For Harris Tolber, for Judah Wickower, for Lauren Linsky upstairs, my name is Jerry Miller. It is the I Love CVille Show. Joe Thomas of WCHV Radio tomorrow. Kathy Galvin on the show to discuss her campaign on Thursday. And some live music on Friday as we welcome the weekend and spring in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. I cannot wait for the rest of the week here on the I Love CVille Show. You guys have a good afternoon, okay? Thank you. Thank you.
As always.
Thank you. It was fun.
Always a pleasure. That was great. Thank you, Jerry.